My name is Zafira, and I'm 28 years old. Last month, I watched my father's smug face crumble when his golden boy son got fired because of me. But this story isn't about sibling rivalry or workplace drama. It's about discovering that the man I called dad for nearly 3 decades had been systematically destroying my life while building up my half-brother's career. The family dinner where everything exploded wasn't just embarrassing, it shattered every assumption I had about blood loyalty and revealed a betrayal so deep it changed our entire family forever. Before we dive into this wild family revenge story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments. And if you're ready for some serious family drama with the most satisfying ending, hit that like button and subscribe because this gets absolutely crazy. The whole mess started 3 weeks ago at what was supposed to be a simple family dinner. My half-brother Marcus had just gotten promoted to senior marketing director at Pinnacle Industries, and Dad insisted we celebrate at his favorite steakhouse. I should have known something was off when Dad specifically requested I wear something professional to dinner. Marcus arrived with his boss, David Chen, a distinguished man in his 50s, who'd apparently heard so much about our accomplished family that he wanted to meet us personally. I work as a freelance graphic designer, mostly creating content for small businesses and startups. It's not glamorous, but I love the creative freedom and flexibility it gives me. The evening started pleasantly enough. David was genuinely interested in my work, asking thoughtful questions about my design process and recent projects. I was mid-sentence, explaining a rebranding project I'd completed for a local coffee shop, when Dad suddenly interrupted. "Oh, Zephyrus just playing around with her little art projects," he said with that condescending chuckle I'd heard my entire life. "She's never held a real job. Always been the dreamer of the family. Unlike Marcus here who's got real ambition and business sense." The table went silent. David's eyebrows raised slightly, but he remained polite. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat, though he didn't defend me. Mom stared at her plate, saying nothing, which had become her default response to Dad's behavior over the years. But Dad wasn't done. "You know, David, I keep telling her she should apply to be Marcus' assistant or something. At least then she'd learn what real work looks like instead of doodling on her computer all day." The humiliation burned through me like acid. Here I was, a grown woman with my own business, being dismissed as a wannabe artist in front of a complete stranger. But what happened next was even worse. David, clearly trying to be diplomatic, mentioned that Pinnacle Industries actually worked with many freelance creatives. "We're always looking for fresh talent in our creative department," he said kindly. Dad laughed, actually laughed. "Trust me, she's not Pinnacle material. Zephyr's more of a Etsy-level talent, if you know what I mean. Stick with the professionals you already have." That's when something snapped inside me. Not the explosive kind of anger, but something cold and calculating. I excused myself to the restroom, but instead of crying like I normally would have, I pulled out my phone and did something I'd never done before. I looked up Pinnacle Industries. What I found made my blood run cold. Marcus' promotion announcement was right there on their company website, along with his headshot and bio. But as I scrolled through their recent press releases and marketing materials, I started recognizing something. The logo design for their new product launch looked familiar, very familiar. I opened my portfolio app and scrolled back 18 months. There it was, a logo concept I'd created for what I thought was a startup called Peak Solutions. The client had paid me a small fee for the initial concept, then disappeared, claiming budget constraints. I'd been disappointed but moved on, as freelancers often do with flaky clients. Except Peak Solutions was apparently a fake company. Someone had stolen my design, and now it was being used by Pinnacle Industries for a major product launch, the same company where my half-brother had just been promoted to head of marketing. My hands shook as I screenshot everything. The logo, the marketing materials, the press releases. Then I opened my email archives and found the original client communications. Peak Solutions had contacted me through my website, but the email address was clearly fake, a generic Gmail account that had since been deleted. But I remembered something else. The initial consultation call had been brief, but the voice was familiar. At the time, I couldn't place it, but now I knew exactly who it was. When I returned to the table, I looked at Marcus with new eyes. He was animatedly describing the brilliant rebranding that had helped secure his promotion. How Head conceptualized a fresh visual identity that perfectly captured the company's innovative spirit. He was literally taking credit for my work. Work had stolen through a fake client persona. But the real gut punch came when I noticed Dad nodding approvingly at every word. The pride in his eyes, as Marcus described his creative process, was something I'd never seen directed at my actual accomplishments. For 28 years, I'd wondered why Dad was so dismissive of my creative career while celebrating Marcus' business achievements. Now I understood, because he knew Marcus was building his success on stolen foundations, and he was perfectly fine with it. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. I smiled, nodded, and played the part of the underachieving daughter while my mind raced with possibilities. David Chen seemed like a decent man, and had clearly been impressed with the rebranding work Marcus was claiming. What would he think if he knew the truth? As we said our goodbyes in the parking lot, David handed me his business card. "Seriously, if you ever want to discuss opportunities at Pinnacle, give me a call. We could use someone with your passion," Dad snorted. "Don't waste your time, David. She'll just disappoint you." But as I looked down at David Chen's card, then back at my father's smug face, I realized something had fundamentally shifted inside me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to shrink away from his cruelty. I wasn't going to accept his narrative about my worth. I was going to destroy it. The drive home was silent, except for the sound of my heart pounding. Mom tried to make small talk about how nice David seemed, but I could barely process her words. My mind was laser-focused on one thing. Marcus had stolen my work, Dad knew about it, and they'd both been gaslighting me about my capabilities while literally profiting from my talent. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, methodically building a case. I pulled every email, every file, every timestamp from the Peak Solutions project. I documented the original design process, the client communications, and the payment records. Then I compared them to Pinnacle's current marketing materials. The evidence was overwhelming. Not just the logo, but several design elements I'd created had been incorporated into their rebranding. We're talking about thousands of dollars in intellectual property theft, not to mention the career advancement Marcus had gained by claiming my work as his own. But I knew I needed more than just proof of theft. I needed to understand the full scope of what had been done to me, and I had a sinking feeling this wasn't an isolated incident. I spent the next week diving deep into Marcus' career history. Head graduated college with mediocre grades and somehow landed an entry-level position at a prestigious marketing firm. According to his LinkedIn, had been promoted unusually quickly, always based on innovative creative campaigns that had impressed clients. I started reverse-searching images from his portfolio, and my worst fears were confirmed. 3 other projects bore striking similarities to work I'd done for small clients over the years. Clients who'd paid me small fees for concepts, then disappeared. Clients who'd all used similar fake email addresses and vague company descriptions. The pattern was clear. Marcus had been systematically stealing my work for years, using it to build his reputation and advance his career. And Dad not only knew, had probably helped orchestrate it. I thought about all the times Dad had dismissed my achievements, all the conversations where Head steered potential clients away from me, all the family gatherings where Head made jokes about my little art hobby while praising Marcus' business acumen. It wasn't just favoritism, it was deliberate sabotage designed to keep me small while helping Marcus steal my ideas. The betrayal cut deeper than any romantic heartbreak I'd ever experienced. This wasn't just about stolen designs or workplace advancement. This was about a father who'd spent decades undermining his own daughter's confidence and success to benefit his son. A father who'd looked me in the eye at dinner and humiliated me in front of a stranger, while knowing his precious Marcus was literally built on stolen foundations. But as the initial shock wore off, something else took its place. A cold, calculating determination I'd never felt before. They'd underestimated me my entire life, treating me like a naive dreamer who'd never amount to anything. They'd used my trusting nature against me, exploiting my work while making me doubt my own abilities. They were about to learn exactly what this Etsy-level talent was capable of. I started by reaching out to a lawyer who specialized in intellectual property theft. The consultation was expensive money I couldn't really afford, but her assessment was crystal clear. I had an ironclad case for copyright infringement, and could pursue both monetary damages and criminal charges. More importantly, She explained that since Marcus had used my stolen work to gain employment benefits and promotions, it constituted fraud. And since this had happened across multiple companies over several years, it was a pattern that could result in serious legal consequences. But legal action would take months, maybe years. And honestly, what I wanted wasn't just justice. I wanted Marcus and Dad to experience the same kind of humiliation and powerlessness they'd subjected me to. I wanted them to feel what it was like to have everything they'd built crumble in an instant. That's when I remembered David Chen's business card. David had seemed genuinely impressed with the rebranding my work that Marcus was claiming. Had also been clearly uncomfortable with Dad's behavior at dinner, shooting me sympathetic looks when he thought no one was looking. Most importantly, had given me his direct contact information and encouraged me to reach out. What if I did exactly that? I spent 3 days crafting the perfect approach. I couldn't just email him with accusations that would seem like sour grapes from a jealous sister. Instead, I needed to present myself as the professional I actually was, while subtly introducing information that would make him question Marcus' integrity. I created a comprehensive portfolio showcasing my best work, including detailed case studies that demonstrated my creative process and problem-solving abilities. I researched Pinnacle Industries thoroughly, identifying specific challenges their marketing department was facing and developing preliminary solutions. Then I crafted an email that was professional, confident, and strategically brilliant. The subject line read, "Following up on our conversation, creative solutions for Pinnacle's Q4 challenges." I reminded David of our brief conversation at dinner and his encouraging words about my passion. I mentioned that I'd been thinking about our discussion and had some ideas that might interest him. I attached my portfolio and a brief proposal addressing some of their current marketing challenges. But here's where I got clever. I included a section showcasing my design evolution over the past 2 years. Each example showed my original concept alongside the inspired variations that had appeared in various marketing campaigns. I didn't explicitly accuse anyone of theft, I simply presented the visual evidence and let David draw his own conclusions. The email ended with a simple request for a brief meeting to discuss potential collaboration opportunities. I hit send at exactly 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, knowing David would likely see it before Marcus got to the office. Then I sat back and waited. The response came faster than I'd expected. By 2 p.m., my phone was ringing. "Zephyra, this is David Chen from Pinnacle Industries. I received your email this morning, and I think we need to talk. Are you available to meet tomorrow?" His tone was carefully neutral, but I could hear something underneath it: surprise, maybe even anger. I'd been right about the visual evidence speaking for itself. "Of course, Mr. Chen. I'm happy to meet at your convenience. Actually, let's meet somewhere private. Do you know the Meridian Cafe downtown? 2 p.m. tomorrow. A private meeting, away from the office." Had definitely seen what I wanted him to see. Perfect. I'll be there. As I hung up the phone, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete confidence in my own worth and abilities. For once, I wasn't the victim of someone else's manipulation. I was the one holding all the cards. Marcus and Dad had no idea what was coming, but their carefully constructed house of lies was about to come crashing down. The Meridian Cafe was busy enough to provide cover for a sensitive conversation, but quiet enough for us to speak freely. I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a corner table where we could talk without being overheard. My portfolio was organized in a leather messenger bag, along with printed copies of all the evidence I'd compiled. David arrived right on time, looking more serious than he had at the family dinner. After ordering coffee, he got straight to the point. "Zephyra, I have to ask you directly. Are you suggesting that Marcus has been using your work without permission?" I'd prepared for this moment, knowing that my answer would determine everything that followed. I needed to be honest but strategic, presenting facts without appearing vindictive. "Mr. Chen, I'm not making accusations. I'm simply showing you my work and letting you draw your own conclusions." I opened my portfolio to the design evolution section. These are concepts I created for various clients over the past 3 years. I keep detailed records of all my projects, including timestamps, client communications, and payment receipts. His expression grew increasingly grim as I walked him through each piece of evidence. The Peak Solutions logo that had become Pinnacle's new product branding. The color palette I'd developed for a fake startup that had somehow appeared in their latest campaign. The typography choices I'd made for a mysterious client who'd vanished after receiving my initial concepts. "This is disturbing," he said finally. "But I need to understand why bring this to me now. Why not go directly to legal channels?" This was the crucial moment. I needed him to see me as a professional seeking justice, not a vindictive family member looking for revenge, because I believe in giving people the opportunity to do the right thing before involving lawyers, I said. "And because you struck me as someone with integrity. At dinner, you treated my work with respect when my own family didn't. That meant something to me." David was quiet for a long moment, studying the evidence spread across our table. "Zephyra, if what you're showing me is accurate, and it certainly appears to be, then we have a serious problem. Marcus isn't just an employee. He's been promoted largely based on the strength of these campaigns. His entire trajectory at our company is built on work that isn't his. I understand this puts you in a difficult position," I said. "But I thought you should know before making any further decisions about his role or responsibilities. Can you give me copies of everything you've shown me today? I need to conduct a thorough investigation before taking any action." I'd anticipated this request and had prepared a comprehensive evidence packet. "Of course. I've also included contact information for the web hosting company that can verify when my original portfolio items were uploaded, as well as my business banking records showing the payments I received for this work." As I handed him the folder, David's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and frowned. "That's interesting. Marcus just texted asking if I've heard from you. He says he's concerned about you reaching out to me and wants to clarify any misunderstandings about your qualifications." The audacity was breathtaking. Marcus was already trying to get ahead of the story, probably planning to paint me as a delusional family member making false claims, but his preemptive strike had actually made him look more suspicious. "I haven't mentioned our meeting to anyone in my family," I said truthfully. David's expression hardened. "Then how would he know we're in contact?" He showed me the text. "Hey David, heard Zephyra might be reaching out about work opportunities. Just wanted to give you a heads up that she sometimes exaggerates her experience. Happy to discuss her actual skill level if needed. Don't want any family drama affecting our professional relationship." The message was perfectly crafted to undermine my credibility while positioning Marcus as the responsible professional looking out for the company's interests. Under normal circumstances, it might have been effective, but given what David now knew, it looked like exactly what it was: damage control. "Hez trying to discredit me before I can present my evidence," I observed calmly. "It certainly appears that way." David put his phone away and looked directly at me. "Zephyra, I want to be completely transparent with you. If your allegations are proven true, Marcus will be terminated immediately. This isn't just about stolen designs, it's about fundamental dishonesty that goes to the core of his employment with us. Are you prepared for the family fallout that will result?" This was the moment I'd been building toward, the point where I had to decide how far I was willing to go. I thought about all the years of dismissed achievements, all the times Dad had made me question my own worth, all the opportunities that might have been mine if I hadn't been systematically undermined. "Mr. Chen, I've spent 28 years being told I wasn't good enough, that my work didn't matter, that I should be grateful for scraps while watching others take credit for my achievements. The family fallout already happened, it just took me this long to recognize it." David nodded slowly. "I understand. And for what it's worth, I think you're incredibly talented. Your portfolio is impressive, and your approach to this situation has been remarkably professional. In fact..." He paused, seeming to make a decision. "Would you be interested in discussing a legitimate consulting opportunity with Pinnacle? Completely separate from this other situation, of course." The offer caught me off guard. In my focus on justice, I hadn't expected anything positive to come from this meeting. I'd be very interested in hearing more about that. We're launching a new division focused on sustainable packaging design, and we need someone with fresh perspective and proven creativity. The timeline is aggressive, but the compensation would be significant. He pulled out his business card and wrote something on the back. "That's my direct line and email. Why don't you think about it while I investigate this other matter?" As we prepared to leave, David asked one final question. "Zephyra, what outcome are you hoping for here? What would justice look like to you?" "I want my work credited properly. I want Marcus held accountable for what he's done." And I want my family to see that the daughter they've been dismissing all these years is actually the one with real talent and integrity. That seems reasonable, David said. I'll be in touch within 48 hours with an update on my investigation. In the meantime, I'd recommend keeping this conversation confidential. That evening, I sat in my apartment feeling a strange mix of anticipation and dread. I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, set events in motion that would inevitably explode my family dynamic. Part of me felt guilty for going behind Marcus' back, for potentially destroying his career. But then I remembered Dad's dismissive laughter at dinner, the way Head humiliated me in front of David while knowing his golden boy was built on stolen foundations. I remembered all the times I'd doubted myself because of their gaslighting, all the opportunities I'd missed because I'd internalized their narrative about my limitations. The guilt faded, replaced by something stronger: determination. My phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. Hey sis. Heard you met with David today. Hope you didn't embarrass yourself too much. Just remember, he's being polite. Pinnacle isn't really interested in amateur work. Don't take it personally when nothing comes of it. Even now, even as his world was about to collapse, he couldn't resist one more condescending jab. He still saw me as the naive little sister who could be manipulated and dismissed. He was about to learn how wrong he was. I turned off my phone and poured myself a glass of wine. Tomorrow, David would begin his investigation, and the careful facade Marcus and Dad had built would start to crumble. But tonight, for the first time in years, I felt genuinely excited about my future. The best part? They still had no idea what was coming. David's investigation moved faster than I'd expected. By Thursday morning, my phone rang with his number on the display. Zephyra, we need to talk immediately. Can you come to my office this afternoon? And I mean my private office, not the main building. His tone was urgent, almost angry. Of course. Is everything all right? Let's just say your evidence was even more damning than you realized. 2 p.m., Executive Building, 15th floor. Ask for me specifically. I spent the morning pacing my apartment, wondering what David had discovered. Had Marcus stolen from other designers too? Was the situation worse than I'd thought? The Executive Building was intimidating, all glass and steel with security that required special clearance. David met me in the lobby personally, his expression grim as he escorted me to his office. Sit down, Zephyra. What I'm about to tell you is going to be shocking. He opened a thick folder on his desk. We didn't just find evidence of the intellectual property theft you documented. We found a pattern going back 4 years, involving at least 12 different designers and multiple companies. My stomach dropped. 12 designers. Marcus has been running a sophisticated operation. He creates fake client personas, approaches freelance designers for budget projects, pays them small amounts for initial concepts, then disappears. The work gets integrated into professional campaigns months later, by which time the original designers have moved on and aren't monitoring how their concepts are being used. David showed me printouts of emails, design comparisons, and financial records. Your brother is responsible for nearly $200,000 in stolen intellectual property. But here's the part that's going to hurt: your father has been helping him. The room started spinning. What do you mean helping him? We traced the fake email addresses Marcus used. They're all registered to shell companies that your father set up. Your dad has been providing the infrastructure for this operation, handling payments through his business accounts to avoid detection. I felt like I was going to be sick. It was one thing to discover that Marcus had stolen my work, but knowing Dad was actively involved in a systematic scheme to defraud designers was devastating. There's more, David continued. We reviewed Marcus' performance records and found inconsistencies in his project timelines. Every major campaign he's credited with happened shortly after these mysterious freelance consultations with fake clients. His supervisors never questioned it because the results were consistently impressive, so his entire career is built on fraud. Essentially, yes. But Zephyra, I need you to understand the implications of what you've uncovered. This isn't just about Marcus losing his job. We're talking about criminal fraud charges, potential lawsuits from multiple victims, and serious legal consequences for both Marcus and your father. The weight of what I'd set in motion suddenly hit me. I'd wanted justice and vindication, but I hadn't fully grasped the magnitude of destruction that would follow. I need to ask you directly, David said. Are you prepared to see this through to the end? Because once I take this to our legal department and law enforcement, there's no going back. I thought about all the designers whose work had been stolen, all the dreams and careers that had been undermined by Marcus and Dad's scheme. I thought about how many other people had been gaslighted and manipulated the way I had been. Yes, I said firmly. Those designers deserve justice too. David nodded approvingly. Good, because I've already contacted our legal team, and they're preparing to file both civil and criminal complaints. We're also reaching out to the other affected designers to notify them of what happened. What about Marcus? Does he know yet? Has about to. David checked his watch. I called him into a meeting 20 minutes ago. By now, he's sitting in our legal department being informed of the investigation. Security is standing by to escort him from the building. As if on cue, David's phone buzzed with a text message. He read it and looked up at me with something resembling satisfaction. Marcus has been terminated effective immediately. His company, laptop, and access cards have been confiscated, and he's been informed that criminal charges are pending. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, I felt hollow. Years of family dysfunction were culminating in this moment, and despite everything Marcus had done, I couldn't help but feel sad about the destruction that was coming. There's something else, David said. Your father has been calling our office repeatedly since yesterday, trying to schedule a meeting to clarify misunderstandings about Marcus' work. Our receptionist says he's become increasingly agitated with each call. Dad knew something was wrong. Maybe Marcus had confided in him about my meeting with David, or maybe his paternal instincts had kicked in. Either way, he was about to discover that his carefully constructed scheme was unraveling. Zafira, I want you to know that your professionalism throughout this process has been remarkable. You could have handled this vindictively, but instead, you've approached it with integrity. That speaks volumes about your character. Thank you, Mr. Chen. That means a lot coming from you. Which brings me to my final point. David pulled out a contract from his desk drawer. Our legal team has reviewed your portfolio and background extensively as part of this investigation. They're unanimous in their assessment that you're exactly what our sustainable packaging division needs. The consulting position I mentioned is yours if you want it, with a starting rate of $125 per hour and potential for full-time employment based on performance. The offer was more than Id ever made as a freelancer, more than Id dared to dream possible just a week ago. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Your family has spent years undermining your confidence and abilities, but your work speaks for itself. It's time for you to see what you're really capable of when you're not being sabotaged. As I signed the consulting agreement, my phone started buzzing with increasingly frantic calls from Dad, then Marcus, then Mom. The family emergency Id set in motion was beginning to explode, and they were all scrambling to understand what had happened. I turned off my phone and smiled at David. When do I start? Monday morning. But first, you're going to have to deal with your family's reaction to all this. Are you ready for that conversation? I thought about the scared, insecure woman I'd been just a week ago, constantly doubting herself because of their manipulation. That woman was gone, replaced by someone who knew her worth and wouldn't accept anything less than respect. I've been ready my whole life, I said. I just didn't know it yet. The explosion came sooner than expected. It barely made it home from David's office when my apartment buzzer rang insistently. Through the intercom, I could hear Dad's voice, strained and desperate. Zefra, we need to talk. Open the door right now. Id anticipated this moment, but hearing his barely controlled panic still sent adrenaline coursing through my system. For a split second, I considered not answering, letting him stew in uncertainty a little longer, but I knew this conversation was inevitable. I'll be right down. Dad was pacing in front of my building like a caged animal, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. His hair was messy, his tie loosened, and there were stress lines around his eyes I'd never noticed before. Marcus stood beside him, looking shell-shocked and defeated. What the hell did you do? Dad's voice cracked as soon as he saw me. I told the truth, I replied calmly. Something our family seems to have trouble with. Marcus stepped forward, and for the first time in my life, I saw real fear in his eyes. Zafira, please, you have to help me fix this. David Chen is talking about criminal charges. My career is destroyed. I'll never work in marketing again. The pleading in his voice was pathetic, but I felt no sympathy. You should have thought about that before you spent 4 years stealing other people's work. It wasn't supposed to hurt anyone. Marcus' composure finally cracked. Those designers got paid for their concepts. I just enhanced them, made them better. I turned amateur work into professional campaigns. You committed fraud, I said flatly. You built your entire career on lies, and now you're facing the consequences. Dad's face flushed red with rage. You vindictive little bitch. You've destroyed your own brother over what? Professional jealousy? Because you couldn't handle that he was more successful than you. The words should have stung, should have made me question my actions like they had countless times before. Instead, they just confirmed everything I'd realized about him. No, Dad. I destroyed a criminal who happened to be related to me. And speaking of which, how's your business doing? I hear you might be facing some legal challenges of your own. His face went white. You don't know what you're talking about. Shell companies, Dad. Fake business registrations. Money laundering through your accounts to hide the sources of stolen designs. Did you really think David's investigation would stop with Marcus? The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus looked between us with growing horror as he realized the full scope of what they'd been caught doing. You knew. I continued, addressing Dad directly. You knew Marcus was stealing from me specifically. You helped him do it while spending years telling me I wasn't good enough. You sabotaged your own daughter to build up your fraud of a son. Hez my son too, Dad whispered. No, Hez your accomplice. There's a difference. Mom appeared from around the corner, having apparently parked down the street. She looked older than I remembered, worn down by years of enabling Dad's favoritism and Marcus' entitlement. Zephira, sweetheart, surely we can work this out as a family, she said in that placating tone. It heard my entire childhood. This doesn't have to destroy everyone. It already has, Mom. The question is whether you're going to keep enabling them or finally acknowledge what they've done. I don't understand, she said helplessly. Marcus has always been so successful, so driven. How could this happen? Because you and Dad taught him that success matters more than integrity, I replied. Because you rewarded him for being ruthless, while punishing me for being honest. Because you created a family dynamic where stealing and lying were acceptable as long as they produced the right results. Marcus suddenly grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to hurt. You have to help me. You're my sister. Family protects family. I yanked my arm away and stared at him with disgust. You lost the right to call me family the first time you stole my work. And you definitely lost it when you spent years watching Dad humiliate me while knowing you owed your success to my talent. But what about Mom? Marcus' voice was breaking now. If Dad goes to prison, what happens to her? It was a low blow, trying to use Mom's welfare to manipulate me into protecting them. But I'd learned too much about manipulation tactics to fall for it. Mom will be fine, I said. Shell'll probably be better off without Dad's toxic influence, honestly. And she's strong enough to rebuild her life without criminal enterprises supporting her lifestyle. Dad's phone started ringing, and he answered it with shaking hands. Hello? Yes, this is Robert Martinez. No, I can't come in for questioning today. I need to speak with my lawyer first. He hung up and looked at us with pure desperation. The FBI wants to talk to me about the shell companies. Zephira, please, you have to make this stop. I'm your father. You stopped being my father the day you chose to systematically destroy my confidence while profiting from my abilities, I replied. A real father would have celebrated my success, not stolen it for someone else. The conversation continued for another hour, with Dad and Marcus alternating between anger, bargaining, and pleading. Mom mostly cried, occasionally trying to mediate but clearly overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. Nothing they said changed my mind. I'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. The family I'd grown up in was built on lies, manipulation, and theft. Watching it collapse was painful, but it was also necessary. Finally, they left, probably to meet with lawyers and figure out their legal options. I stood on the sidewalk, watching them drive away, knowing it might be the last time we spoke as a family. My phone had been buzzing constantly with calls from relatives who'd heard about Marcus being fired. The family gossip network was already spreading the news, though they probably didn't understand the full scope of the scandal yet. I turned off my phone and went back upstairs. Tomorrow, I'd start my new consulting position at Pinnacle Industries. I'd begin building a career based on my actual talents, not stolen concepts or family connections. For the first time in my life, my success would be entirely my own. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new office at Pinnacle Industries, not as a consultant anymore, but as the newly appointed creative director for sustainable packaging. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm now Marcus' former boss, occupying a position he'll never have the qualifications to reach legitimately. The legal proceedings moved quickly once the FBI got involved. Dad pled guilty to money laundering and conspiracy charges, receiving 2 years in federal prison and substantial financial penalties. Marcus faced fraud charges in 3 states, and ultimately accepted a plea deal for 18 months in minimum security prison, plus 5 years of probation. More importantly, we tracked down 11 of the 12 designers whose work had been stolen. Most were shocked to discover how their concepts had been used, but grateful to finally understand why their small consultation fees had led to such elaborate campaigns. The settlement funds from Pinnacle's lawsuit against Marcus and Dad were distributed among the victims, with each designer receiving compensation ranging from $15,000 to $40,000. The designer we couldn't locate was a young artist named Sarah Chen David's niece, as it turned out. She'd been one of Marcus' first victims, a college student whose logo design had launched his entire fraudulent career. David took her case personally, and the family reunion when she learned the truth was both heartbreaking and healing. Mom filed for divorce 3 months ago. The process has been difficult, but she's staying with my Aunt Linda while she figures out her next steps. We've started having weekly coffee dates, slowly rebuilding our relationship without Dad's toxic influence poisoning every interaction. She's been going to therapy and recently told me she's starting to understand how deeply she enabled the dysfunction that shaped our family. I spent so many years keeping the peace that I forgot to protect my own daughter, she said during one of our conversations. I'm sorry it took a federal investigation for me to see what was right in front of me. The most surprising development has been my relationship with David Chen. What started as a professional consulting arrangement has evolved into something like a mentorship. Has become the supportive father figure I never had, celebrating my achievements and challenging me to reach higher without ever making me doubt my worth. Under his guidance, my sustainable packaging division has exceeded all performance expectations. We've landed 3 major clients and developed innovative solutions that are being adopted industry-wide. The work is challenging and rewarding in ways I never experienced as a freelancer, constantly worried about the next project. But the real transformation has been internal. I wake up every morning knowing that my success is legitimate, that my achievements reflect my actual abilities rather than someone else's stolen work. The confidence I've gained has rippled into every aspect of my life. I've also built genuine friendships with my colleagues, people who value my ideas and respect my expertise. For years, I thought there was something inherently flawed about me that made my family dismiss my capabilities. Now I understand that their treatment had nothing to do with my worth and everything to do with their own moral failings. The other designers who were victims of Marcus' scheme have become an unexpected support network. We created a private online group where we share opportunities, collaborate on projects, and celebrate each other's successes. Sarah Chen and I have become particularly close. She's incredibly talented and reminds me of myself before years of gaslighting destroyed my confidence. Last month, I got a letter from Marcus in prison. He wanted to apologize and explain his side of things. I threw it away without reading it. Some relationships are too damaged to repair, and I've learned that forgiveness doesn't require maintaining toxic connections. Dad has tried to contact me several times through Mom, asking for visits or phone calls. I've declined every request. The man who spent 28 years systematically undermining my self-worth while enabling fraud doesn't deserve access to the life I've built without him. The hardest part of this entire experience wasn't the family destruction or the legal proceedings, it was learning to trust my own judgment again. After years of being told I was overly sensitive, too emotional, or misreading situations, I had to relearn how to believe my own perceptions. Therapy helped enormously. My counselor specialized in family trauma and helped me understand the patterns of manipulation it endured. She taught me to recognize gaslighting techniques and develop healthy boundaries with people who don't respect them. I've also started speaking at design conferences about intellectual property protection and the hidden costs of creative theft. The response has been overwhelming. So many freelancers have similar stories of concepts being stolen or clients disappearing after receiving initial work. These speaking engagements led to consulting opportunities with other companies looking to improve their relationships with creative professionals. I'm building a reputation as someone who understands both the business and artistic sides of the industry, which has opened doors I never expected. The most satisfying moment came 3 weeks ago, when I received a call from someone claiming to be Marcus' former colleague at his previous company. Apparently, they'd been reviewing old campaigns after hearing about his legal troubles and discovered additional instances of stolen work. The investigation is expanding, and Marcus might face additional charges. I felt no sympathy when I heard the news. Play with fire long enough, and eventually, everything burns down. Today marks exactly 6 months since that family dinner, where everything changed. I'm celebrating by signing the lease on a beautiful apartment downtown, something I could never have afforded as a struggling freelancer, but can easily manage with my current salary and consulting income. As I packed up my old apartment, I found the business card David gave me that night at the restaurant. On the back had written, "Talented people deserve better than small dreams." At the time, I thought he was just being polite. Now I understand he saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. This journey taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about the people who support your growth, celebrate your achievements, and treat you with respect. My chosen family of colleagues, friends, and mentors is infinitely healthier than the biological family that tried to keep me small. Sometimes people ask if I regret destroying my family relationships to expose the truth. The answer is simple. You can't destroy something that was already broken. I just stopped pretending it was whole. So here's my question for all of you who've made it this far in my story. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own integrity? How do you know when it's time to stop protecting people who've been hurting you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one and love hearing your perspectives on family dynamics and standing up for yourself. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama with lessons about boundaries, self-worth, and the courage to demand better treatment. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that their talents matter and their voice deserves to be heard. Thank you for following my journey from doormat to director. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. So make sure you're teaching them that you deserve respect. Life's too short to accept less than your worth, even from family, especially from family.